On my wedding night, something very strange happened. My husband smiled, but his eyes were cold. He whispered a name I had never heard before. Then he pulled away, like I was not his wife at all. My heart started to shake. Who was that name? Why did he say it on our first night? I wanted to ask, but fear closed my mouth. That night was not the start of love. It was the start of a secret I was never ready to hear. Before we begin, press like, share this with a friend, and subscribe. Stay with me till the end, because what you are about to hear hides a secret that will shock you. My name is Emma, and I grew up in a small town where everyone knew each other. Life was simple, and people cared about traditions more than anything else. My parents always told me that marriage was the most important step in a girl's life. I was 22 when they told me about Jack, a kind man from a nearby town. They said he was hardworking, respectful, and ready for marriage. I felt nervous but trusted my parents' choice. The first time I met Jack, he was shy and quiet. He wore a neat shirt and smiled politely, though his eyes looked heavy, as if he carried hidden pain. My heart raced as he spoke softly about his job as a mechanic and how much he wanted a simple life. I did not know him well, but something about his calm voice made me feel safe. My parents quickly agreed, and soon our wedding was arranged. Everything felt like a dream I was not ready for. The days before the wedding were filled with preparations. My mother stitched a white dress for me, while my brother decorated our yard with lights. Friends visited every evening, laughing and teasing me about my new life. Jack also visited once, bringing flowers that smelled fresh and sweet. He didn't say much, but when he looked at me, there was warmth in his eyes. I told myself I was lucky, even though deep down I still feared the unknown. Finally, the wedding day arrived. The church was filled with people dressed in bright clothes, whispering and smiling. I walked down the aisle holding my father's picture close to my heart because he had passed away years earlier. Jack stood waiting, looking handsome yet nervous. When we exchanged vows, his hands shook slightly. I thought it was because of excitement, and I smiled to reassure him. The bells rang and everyone cheered for us as husband and wife. After the ceremony, we went to a big hall where music played and food was served. People danced, laughed, and wished us happiness. Jack stayed close to me, holding my hand firmly as if he didn't want to let go. He smiled when others spoke to him, but whenever he thought no one was watching, his eyes grew distant. I wondered what thoughts were hiding inside his heart, but I decided not to ask that night. I wanted our day to remain joyful. When the party ended, we drove to our small new home. The house was simple, with white walls and a cozy bedroom. I felt nervous as I entered, my hands trembling while I removed my veil. Jack closed the door gently and sat on the edge of the bed. I waited for him to speak, but instead, he lowered his face into his hands. To my shock, his shoulders shook and tears rolled down his cheeks. My groom was crying on our wedding night. I froze for a moment, unsure of what to do. This was supposed to be the happiest night of our lives, yet my husband was weeping. Slowly, I moved closer and touched his arm. "Jack, what's wrong?" I whispered. He looked at me with red eyes and said, "I'm sorry, Emma. I should have told you before, but I was afraid." My heart pounded in my chest. His words felt heavy, as if a secret was about to change everything between us. You may think you know the truth, but trust me, you don't. Keep watching, because the real twist is about to come. Jack took a deep breath and began to speak. He told me that he had been engaged before to a girl named Anna, who had died in a car accident 2 years earlier. His voice cracked as he explained how much he had loved her, how they had planned a future together, and how her sudden death had left him broken. "I thought I had healed," he said softly, "but standing here with you tonight, I realized I'm still carrying that pain." Tears filled my own eyes as I listened. Part of me felt hurt that he hadn't told me earlier, but another part felt deep sympathy for his loss. I held his hand tightly and whispered, "You don't have to hide from me. I want to share your pain." Jack looked surprised at my words, as if he expected me to be angry. Slowly, his tears eased, and he pulled me into his arms. For the first time, I felt his heart beating against mine. That night, instead of romance, we shared silence and soft whispers. Jack told me stories of Anna, of their laughter and their plans, while I listened with an open heart. I understood then that love was not only about smiles, but also about carrying someone's past with care. We fell asleep holding hands, two souls learning how to trust each other. When morning came, the sun streamed through the curtains, bringing light to a new beginning we both desperately needed. The following days were not easy. People in town expected us to act like a perfect couple, but inside our home, silence often filled the rooms. Jack tried to smile, but sometimes I caught him staring at Anna's old photo he kept hidden in a drawer. It hurt, yet I reminded myself that healing takes time. I cooked his favorite meals, left small notes for him, and talked gently, hoping little by little he would open his heart to me fully. One evening, as I served dinner, Jack finally smiled at me in a way that felt different. His eyes carried less pain, and he thanked me for being patient. "You remind me that life can still be kind," he said softly. My chest warmed with hope. That night, instead of tears, we laughed over silly stories from my childhood. It was a small step, but it felt like the beginning of something real between us, something that belonged only to us. As months passed, we grew closer. We started taking evening walks in the park, watching children play and birds fly. Jack began telling me about his dreams, owning his own workshop, building a strong home, maybe even having kids one day. I listened with joy, because those dreams now included me. Slowly, Anna's shadow faded from his eyes, though I knew he would always remember her. I accepted that his love for her did not lessen his love for me. One rainy night, the power went out in our house. We lit candles and sat on the floor, eating bread and soup by the dim light. Jack suddenly reached for my hand and said, "Emma, I never thought I could smile again, but you brought me back to life." His voice shook, but this time with gratitude, not grief. Tears welled up in my eyes, and I whispered, "We will face everything together." That night, I knew our bond had truly begun. Soon, our first challenge came. Jack's workshop burned in a small fire caused by faulty wiring. He was crushed, standing in front of the ashes of his dream. I held his hand tightly and told him we would rebuild. Together, we worked extra hours. I took stitching jobs while he repaired cars in borrowed space. We ate simple food, saved every coin, and leaned on each other. The hardship was heavy, but it pulled us even closer as a team. Months later, Jack's friends helped him rebuild the workshop. On the day it reopened, Jack hugged me in front of everyone and whispered, "None of this would be possible without you." My heart swelled with pride. That night, as we locked the workshop doors, he kissed my forehead and said, "This time, my tears are for joy." I realized then how far we had come from that first night, when grief had almost drowned us. Now, love had taken root, life kept moving forward. We celebrated our first wedding anniversary with a simple dinner at home. Jack surprised me with a small gold chain, and I gave him a handmade wallet. We laughed, ate cake, and danced in the living room to soft music. In that moment, I no longer felt like the girl who had married a stranger. I felt like a woman who had built a home, brick by brick, with trust, patience, and love that had grown stronger. Later that year, I discovered I was pregnant. At first, fear filled my heart, but when I told Jack, his face lit up with joy. He lifted me in his arms and spun me around. "We're going to be parents," he shouted, his voice filled with excitement. The memory of his tears on our wedding night seemed so far away now. We prepared for the baby together, painting the nursery blue and white and buying tiny clothes that made us smile with hope. The day our son, Sam, was born, Jack cried again, but this time in the hospital room holding the small bundle in his arms. "I never thought I'd get another chance at happiness," he whispered. My heart melted as I watched him press his cheek against Sam's tiny face. Those tears, once heavy with grief, now shone with love and gratitude. I knew then that the man who once broke down on our wedding night had finally healed and found peace. Raising Sam was not easy, but it brought us closer. Nights were sleepless, days were busy, yet Jack always found time to help me. He sang lullabies to Sam and repaired toys when they broke. Sometimes I watched him from the doorway, holding our baby with gentle care, and thought about the boyish smile he had hidden for so long. Life was not perfect, but it was ours, built on patience, struggle, and the tears that had slowly turned into joy. Years passed, and Sam grew into a curious child who filled our home with laughter. Jack taught him how to fix small things, while I taught him stories and songs. Our home, once filled with silence, now echoed with giggles and footsteps. Neighbors often said we were a strong family, but only we knew how much pain and effort had built this strength. Jack still visited Anna's grave sometimes, and I always went with him. Together we honored the past but lived in the present. One evening after visiting Anna's grave, Jack held my hand and said, "Emma, I know I never told you, but thank you for saving me. I was lost, but you showed me light." His words touched my soul. I told him, "You saved me too, Jack. You taught me that love is not just smiles, it's tears, patience, and never giving up." We hugged under the setting sun, and in that moment, I felt our journey had come full circle. On our 10th anniversary, Jack prepared a surprise. He decorated our backyard with fairy lights and invited close friends. When I stepped outside, he knelt down and held a new ring. "Will you marry me again, Emma? This time with no fear, only love?" Tears filled my eyes as I nodded. The guests cheered, and Jack slipped the ring onto my finger. That night, as we danced under the stars, I remembered our first wedding and how far we had come since then. Life continued with its ups and downs. We faced bills, sickness, and arguments like any couple. Sometimes we fought, sometimes we stayed silent, but each time we found our way back. Jack would often hold me after fights and whisper, "I'm sorry," while I would reply, "Me too." These moments reminded us that love is not about never breaking. It's about fixing what breaks. Our bond, once fragile, had grown unshakable through honesty and forgiveness. As Sam grew older, he often asked about our love story. Jack would laugh and say, "Your mom was too beautiful. I couldn't help but cry." We never told him the full truth about that night, at least not yet, but inside, we both knew it was the night that had shaped our whole journey. What had begun with tears of pain had led to a life full of laughter, hope, and family. Our story had turned sorrow into strength. Sometimes at night, I lay in bed beside Jack and thought about the girl I once was, young, nervous, and scared of the unknown. If I could speak to her now, I would tell her, "Be patient, Emma. Love will come, but it will test you first. Don't give up." I realized then that marriage was not about a perfect start, but about growing together through storms and sunshine until two souls became one unshakable bond built on truth and trust. Jack, too, had changed. He was no longer the broken man haunted by the past. He had become a father, a husband, a man who smiled often and carried hope in his heart. Sometimes when I caught him looking at me with quiet admiration, I felt a deep peace. I knew Anna would always have a place in his heart, but I also knew that my place was right here beside him, his present, his future, and his forever partner in love. One summer evening, we sat on the porch watching Sam play with his friends. Jack leaned back in his chair and said, "Emma, do you remember our wedding night?" My cheeks warmed and I nodded. "Yes," I replied softly. He chuckled and said, "Back then I thought my tears were weakness. Now I know they were the start of something strong." I smiled, leaned on his shoulder and whispered, "Those tears built our life." We sat in silence, hearts at peace. As I look back now, I see our journey like a long road filled with twists, bumps, and beautiful views. That first night when Jack cried, I thought it meant our story was broken before it began. But I was wrong. It was not an ending. It was a beginning written in tears, healed by patience and strengthened by love. Today, when I see Jack and Sam laughing together, I thank God for giving me this imperfect yet perfect life. So whenever people ask about my marriage, I smile and say, "My groom cried on the wedding night and it was the best thing that ever happened." Because in those tears I found truth. In his pain I found my purpose. And in our struggles we found love that could survive anything. Our story is not a fairy tale, but it is real. And that makes it more beautiful than I could have ever dreamed. This story is over, but many more are waiting. If you want to hear them, click like, share this video, and subscribe now so you never miss the next twist.